Television that you as a member make possible. WVIZ, Cleveland, Akron.
Took my girl to Cedar Point to see. She got stuck on Cedar Point and wouldn't come home with me.
Since 1870, millions of Americans have traveled to Cedar Point for summer fun. Cedar Point Memories presents a nostalgic journey through the remarkable 125-year history of one of the world's most enduring amusement parks.
It's just in my roots. I walked there when it was dirt, before there were sidewalks.
As big as the Coliseum and Hotel Breakers were, the biggest change came with the addition of an amusement area before the 1906 season. A $10,000 carousel was installed where rides could be had 1 for a nickel and 6 for a quarter. And now visitors could see the jungles of Cedar Point on a new miniature steam railway. This film, shot some years later, reveals that a miniature village was hidden deep within the jungles.
I remember they had to put a tall smokestack on it so that the smoke didn't come back in the man that was running its face or the people that were riding on the train. But it was a favorite ride of all the little kids. I remember that very well.
Would-be pilots could ride the circle swing, described as the nearest successful approach to the airship, while future sailors had a trip to Rockaway, a simulated boat ride. Maybe even more popular than a chance to swim in the Lake Erie Breakers was watching from the elevated boardwalk, especially when a contraption called the Sea Swing was installed offshore. That could always be counted on for a chuckle or two.
A circular swing that people sat on little chairs, and it had a little gasoline engine. When it was turned on, the swings would swing out over the water.
The sea swing was sort of scary to me, but I liked to watch the others. They were all having so much fun.
If people actually hit the water, their bathing suits would fill with water, and occasionally the bathing suit would come flying off.
By the 1920s, Cedar Point was drawing enough people to support the operation of 3 roller coasters. Joining the racer were the Leap the Dips coaster, installed in 1912, and the Leapfrog Scenic Railway, which made its debut in 1917. Clayton Wisely remembers riding the Scenic Railway in 1921. It was the first time his family had ever seen a roller coaster, and it looked like a good way to see the sights. For the younger set, a kiddie land was opened in 1924. It featured perennial favorites like the Seesaw and the Slide. Starting in 1925, older kids could play in a novelty called Noah's Ark. If there was ever a unique concept, this was it.
You went up on the incline, and there was a pond of water about 2 or 3 inches thick with lily pads about this big that you had to step in the center, and as you went across, you got to the steps that went up. If you didn't step in the center, you got a wet foot. In the pilot house, Noah was there. Now the wooden figures that were on the outside of the ark rocked back and forth with the boat, and they had fish lines. One was named Ham, which was supposed to be the son of Noah, but it was a fun ride. Yeah, it wasn't really a ride, it was just an experience.
For a thrilling experience, nothing topped the Cyclone roller coaster. Installed near the beach in 1929, the ride towered over all others when it came to excitement.
When you would drive to Cedar Point on the chaussee, you knew you were getting close when you could see the roller coaster.
In 1929, Cedar Point made their last contribution of the old Cedar Point era to the Midway, and that was the Cyclone roller coaster. And during its years of survival at Cedar Point, 1929 to 1950, was probably the greatest ride installed ever at Cedar Point through that time period.
That ride up that long, long hill was, to me, it struck terror into me. But I had to do it. And so when you started down some people stood up, and then I never did. I always felt that maybe it would be my last act on Earth or something. And when you got off, and you say, "How was it?" And it's okay, no big deal, you know. I thought you were shaking all the time.
Well, it's just that it threw you around tremendously. Today they call it G-forces, and in those days they didn't know what it meant. It was just plain wild, and a lot of people came off rather bruised up.
The Cyclone was notorious for being rough. It featured some steeply banked turns. It was fast, and many of the operators said every day they could walk under the ride and find anything from coins and fountain pens to false teeth and wigs.
Probably, unless you really like to beat yourself up, you didn't ride it too often.
In spite of the excitement of the Cyclone, the Great Depression proved to be an even rougher ride for Cedar Point in the 1930s. George Beckling's death in 1931 only served to underscore the end of Cedar Point's golden years.
Cedar Point Memories, wasn't it a wonderful program? Did you enjoy it? I hope so.